This squid agave, Agave bracteosa, is enjoying ideal light in my shade garden. Not too much, not too little, just right. I'm award-winning garden photojournalist Debra Lee Baldwin. I'm proud to have authored 3 best-selling books about using succulents in residential gardens and containers. This video corresponds to the Shade Succulents page of my site, debraleebaldwin.com. Go there for labeled photos of over 80 succulents for dry shade. I'll begin by helping you define the kinds of shade you have in your garden. Then I'll introduce you to succulents that'll work in those areas. I've done the hard work for you, growing the plants and seeing what they like. At the end of this video, I have a fun quiz for you. If I've done my job, you'll ace it. I grow nearly all the shade succulents I'm about to show you in my own garden. I'm in Zone 9B, inland Southern California, in the foothills northeast of San Diego. Shade succulents tolerate more hours of sunlight closer to the ocean. Farther east and nearer the desert, much less. My inland garden gets harsh sun and high heat in summer. Yet for over 25 years, I've grown dozens of different kinds of shade succulents. It's important to remember that sun and shade shift during the day, and what's exposed in winter may be shaded in summer, and vice versa. I'll refer to 3 kinds of shade: partial, bright, and full. Adjust these designations based on your own location. For example, what's part shade for me can handle full sun in, say, Coronado or Santa Barbara. Ideal light for any succulent also depends on the type of plant, its location in your garden, and the time of year and temperature. Even elevation makes a difference. The good news is that for the most part, succulents are adaptable. They have to be. They can't pull up their roots and run for shade. This is how Kalanchoe sensipula deals with too much sun. Partial shade is the best light for most non-desert succulents like Aeoniums, Crassulas, aloes, and Echeverrias. Partial shade, also known as part sun or semi-shade, is full sun for several hours in the early morning or late afternoon and bright shade for the remainder. Partial shade can also be dappled light, flickering through overhead leaves. Such intermittent light will protect sun-sensitive plants even at midday. Bright shade is indirect sunlight that hits plants from the side, like when they're under eaves, shelves, tables, or trees. Sometimes called filtered light, bright shade is typical of greenhouses, nurseries, lath houses, and structures covered in shade cloth and beneath patio umbrellas or sun sails. What protects plants from sunburn in summer can also protect them from frost in winter. Here, smooth-leaved, non-spiny Agave attenuata is an understory plant in bright shade. It has to be. Its leaves are too thin to withstand strong sun. Plants in full shade, also called deep shade, don't get much sun at all, and if they do, it's brief and not intense. Full shade succulents like this Hoya carnosa need some bright light to look their best and to bloom. Because light is so important to succulent health, you should also notice reflective surfaces. For example, my home's light-colored south-facing wall bounces sunlight into this terraced garden. If a plant etiolates, meaning flattens or elongates to expose its leaves to greater sun, rotate or move its pot, dig it up and replant it, or check to see if overhanging branches need trimming. That reddening is called stress. Color from stressing often comes as a surprise, as was the case with my Haworthia coarctata. Stress is a fascinating topic. My first YouTube video is about stressing succulents to make them colorful. The thing to remember is that succulents that are red, yellow, or orange when you buy them may revert to green in shade, like this aloe in full sun, partial shade, and bright shade. If the leaves of a shade succulent get sunburned, new growth will eventually hide the damage. As well as foliage, spines, fuzz, powder, and filaments help shade certain succulents and deflect sunlight. Succulents with unprotected skin, like this domino cactus, may need shade. Here, sunburn has caused irreversible damage. The same is true of caudiciforms like this Gyrodanthes. It's tricky because its leaves need sun. In habitat, they cover the plant, shading it. Shade succulents tend to be shades of green. Those that are variegated, like this Agave attenuata, have yellow or cream stripes or margins. Because paler areas lack pigment, variegation makes a succulent vulnerable to sunburn. This is Aloe arborescens variegata. The greater the ability to photosynthesize, the more vigorous the plant. So variegates, like Aeonium sunburst, tend not to grow as fast as their solid green cousins. Even tough agaves, if variegated, will sunburn in a hot inland garden in full summer sun. My variegated butterfly agave was too far gone to recover. The good news is that not only do variegated succulents prefer shade, the lighter the variegation, the more they visually sparkle in a shade garden. Aeoniums are native to the Canary Islands off the coast of North Africa. They love the mild maritime climate of coastal California from the Bay Area south. Within a mile or two of the Pacific, Aeoniums look like this, in full sun. These similar plants are 15 miles due east in my garden. They've tightened their rosettes to give themselves more shade. This colony at a nearby nursery is showing heat and sun stress on top, where it's most exposed. Lower rosettes look better because they're shaded by upper ones. These Aeoniums sunburned. A heat wave hit in late spring and they didn't have time to acclimate. I could have prevented this with a row cover. A smart gardener checks the forecast. It took about 6 months for them to outgrow the damage. I replicate ideal coastal conditions by growing Aeoniums in partial to bright shade. Watch my video, How to Plant or Redo a Succulent Garden, to see how I prune Aeoniums and replant them as cuttings. Many Crassulas do well in shade, but they may not attain their full color potential. This combines Crassula rupestris, a stacked Crassula, with Golem and Ripple jades. This common green jade, my very first succulent, moved here with me 30 years ago. It's in full shade and has stretched a bit, but it's perfectly fine. Ripple jade gets full sun for a few hours in the morning and bright shade the rest of the day. Notice it's blooming only on one side. Succulent flowers tend to lean toward greatest sunlight. Tricolor jade holds its variegation in shade and, like all jades, starts readily from cuttings. Fairy Crassula makes a great ground cover and is a wonderful shade succulent, which is why it has a post on my website and its own 4-minute YouTube video. Haworthias are terrific potted succulents and, like sansevierias, are fine in full shade and even grow indoors. This low-light container garden combines Haworthias and gasterias. Both genera are highly collectible. There are thousands of different kinds. Figuring out plant names based on photos online is tricky. I believe this is Gasteria nitida variety Armstrongii, but I'm not sure. In the pot at left is Haworthia cymbiformis. On the right, a Haworthia truncata hybrid. This lovely Haworthia pumila did great on my kitchen windowsill for nearly a year until I overwatered it. I'd forgotten it was in a non-draining pot. From Madagascar, Kalanchoes do best along the coast, where they bask in all-day sun. In my garden, they're mostly bright to full shade succulents. Exceptions are those that turn bright red, like this Kalanchoe sexangularis. It gets full morning sun, but the stress keeps it spindly. The challenge with these and other shade succulents is to give them enough sun so they bloom, but not so much that they burn. However, Kalanchoe blossfeldiana does well in all kinds of sun and shade, as long as they're not extreme. Numerous hybrids of this very commercial Kalanchoe produce vividly colorful flower clusters. It's okay indoors, but may not repeat bloom unless given several hours of sun daily. I underplanted Kalanchoe blossfeldiana with sedums ogon and Tokyo Sun to repeat the flower color and to contrast with the cobalt pot. Stone crops typically revert to green in low light. Sedum ogon keeps its color better than most. I combined Tokyo Sun with green Haworthias and Peperomia graveolens Ruby Glow, a red succulent that doesn't revert even in full shade. Countless sansevieria cultivars include compact bird's nest varieties like these. This 6-year-old potful of sansevierias sits on the center support of a round table, and you can see the plants through the glass top. See it come together in my video, How to Redo a Succulent Shade Arrangement. I love the way the leaves of this starfish sansevieria overlap. This is how it looked 7 years ago. Since then, it has sent forth half a dozen offsets on stiff, rope-like stems. Vining and trailing succulents are typically understory plants in habitat, which makes them perfect for hanging baskets. Pendant succulents do well in tall pots, too. This mousetail or rat-tail cactus will need at least half a day's sun to bloom. Ripsalis pilocarpa is one of 35 species of a succulent genus from South and Central America. Trailing green stems go every which way. Senecio rollianus, or string of pearls, is a full shade plant for me. I use similar Senecio radicans, or fish hooks, as a more versatile alternative. It does well in bright to partial shade. Peperomia ruby cascade loves dappled shade. This one's pot hangs from a tree branch. Daisy-like flowers are a clue that this is not ivy. Commonly called wax ivy, Senecio macroglossus has rubbery, succulent leaves. String of hearts thrives in bright to full shade and even indoors. Overwatering will rot its tuberous roots, so treat it like a cactus. Would you like more on indoor succulents? Be sure to visit that page on my website. I've created a fun quiz to test your new knowledge. Find the answers on the Shade Succulents page of debraleebaldwin.com. The link is in the video description and in the comments. So, what are these succulents saying? This sunset jade is in full sun, but are some of its leaves shaded? How can you tell? Why are some of these Aeoniums greener than the others? This lovely combo is in full sun near San Diego Bay. Would it keep its color farther inland? What kind of light does this paddle cactus need in a coastal garden? How about inland? Why? Which part of this kiwi Aeonium is getting the most sunlight? Why is the plant lopsided? What are the light requirements of this container garden? Go to my site's Shade Succulents page for the answers. Find the link in the video description and comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Do check out my other succulent videos too. My channel has had over 5 million views. I welcome your comments and questions. Be sure to subscribe.